That's us, Philly's #1 college radio station, WHIP. 215-204-9449 is the number if you want to call and hang with us. Main event, Zach Gelb, Chase Sr. here with you on this beautiful Tuesday. Eagles get a big victory last night. Temple Owls will be in action this Saturday, going up against the Fordham Rams, trying to get their first victory of the season. And last week they played the Houston Cougars, and the Owls just lost that game. And the man that was on the call for ESPN was the one and only former NFL tight end, Anthony Becht. Anthony, it's your buddy Zach Gelb and Chase Sr. How are you?
I'm doing well, guys. Thanks for having me.
Well, thank you for coming on. And this is a Temple team that is very young, and they're 0-2 to start out the season. I'm just curious, if you're head coach Matt Rule, how do you keep the confidence of a young group like this?
Well, I think he's doing, first and foremost, a fantastic job. He's kind of a guy that kind of just gets it. There's a lot of coaches out there that, don't really know how to connect with their players sometimes, and they're really 100% like football. And to me, he has a really good connection with the players, and it's not so much a player's coach, because I think he's extremely tough on them. I've been to several practices, and he pushes them and works them hard and puts a high standard on him, but he has a very nice mix of just getting the most out of his players. And I think it was evident against Houston that, here's a Houston team that, basically put up 65 points the week before, and, high-flying offense, and he had these guys cranked up, playing hard. You come from a game against Notre Dame where, you had a bit of a slow start, and he kind of challenged his defense and his defensive back to step up and play better. And, I think they answered the call and they listened to him. And I don't think that's ever going to be a problem, I think, this season. I think that he does an excellent job of preparing his team and gets the most out of him, week to week.
And this past Saturday was the inaugural American Athletic Conference game, and it was a stellar game over there at the Lincoln Financial Field, Houston and Temple. How do you think this American Athletic Conference will play up in the football ranks?
Well, obviously you have Louisville, who's kind of in a class of their own, so, they're doing extremely well, and they look like they're going to kind of glide on through here until they get to the meat of their schedule. But, it's interesting. You have Cincinnati, who I did their first game, and they came out looking great, and then all of a sudden, they go play Illinois, and they go drop a bomb. So it really comes down to that off season and that out of league scheduling. How many games can they win, all these teams? And I really like Central Florida. I think they're a team that's going to be the one that kind of poses the challenge for Louisville, because they have such a strong offense and have a good quarterback in Blake Bortles. And you look across the conference, I think there's competitive teams. Rutgers is good. They'll fight you. They got very good players. And Cincinnati's a good team too. Obviously losing Munchie last week obviously doesn't help their cause, but they have another good quarterback, which they're very fortunate. So, and then all the rest of the teams in the conference, honestly, I think they give you a good fighting chance every single week. So, I think as the weeks go on, everybody gets a little better, hones in, and starts playing a little more competitively as they get into the meat of the schedule.
Anthony, Chase Sr. here. Thanks so much for joining us on the main event. Temple obviously struggled early against Notre Dame in Week 1. Then they come back home to take on Houston, a team that put up 60-plus points on the board, 627 yards on the ground and in the air. And then, that defensive effort was phenomenal on Saturday. Houston had 8 trips to the red zone, and Temple defense only gave up 1 touchdown. How impressed were you with that Temple defensive effort?
Yeah, honestly, as that game went on, they were physical at the point of attack. I thought, they rolled so many players in on defense. Defensive coordinator Phil Snow told me he's going to play 20, 21 guys in the game. And, these guys came in, played hard. You have that kind of up-tempo offense. You really got to have guys on the same page. And to roll in and have so many players come in and be in the right spots and play it as well as they did, I thought it was a great stepping stone, at least, to move on throughout the season. Houston's going to get their yards. We know that. The passing game's almost an extension of how their running game works. And, they kept everybody in front of them. When they got down that red zone, especially tight, usually, you get a little tighter there. That, the advantage goes to that offense. They got so many options, but they really hunkered down, kept everything in front of them, and really, pressed the pocket well and made it difficult for Houston to punch it in and score touchdowns.
Anthony Becht joins us on the hotline, Philly's #1 college radio station, WHIP. And Anthony, during the course of that game, you saw Pylon started off the game, and then they went to a corner. And we know that Houston, in that pistol formation, runs 2 quarterbacks. Were you surprised that they kept Pylon out of the game later on in that second half?
Well, as I was assessing the situation, I thought they were just kind of mixing it up. But as I looked down, I saw a few trainers kind of working on his trap neck area, and I thought maybe he might have got a stinger or something, maybe with his shoulder that was injured, and they decided not to put him back in the game. So, I thought, they were really just pulling him initially because, he wasn't very consistent. I think he was like 6 for, I think 17 to start the game or something like that, and just wasn't very efficient. And, Coach told us, Coach Levine for Houston said he'd make a change in general just to mix things up, but I think more or less he kind of pulled him, and then maybe come to find out he was maybe not as healthy to finish that game as they thought. And I thought O'Korn, for a true freshman, I mean, he's definitely a guy that they can build off of and be excited about running that offense. I thought he did a decent job of, putting the ball in the hands of the receivers and letting them make plays. So, and plus, he drove the team down and got them in a position, obviously to take the lead and then finish it off there in the fourth quarter. So, they definitely have some talent at the position, in Houston.
You see this Temple offense, and this was a group that Connor Riley is a junior quarterback, but he hasn't got a start before this season in the past regimes under Steve Adazio, and now the new head coach Matt Rule named him the starting quarterback, and then the running backs are physical as well with Kenny Harper and Zaire Williams. But this team hasn't been able to finish in the red zone. There's been a plethora of problems in the kicking game as well, whether it was Paul Layden or Jim Cooper Jr. on Saturday. How does this team work on finishing in the red zone? Because they've been leaving a lot of points off the board the last 2 weeks.
Well, the kicking game, obviously, that's a frustrating situation for Coach Rule. I mean, you try to give kids chances, and you try to maybe shake it up a little bit and hope somebody steps up. But it's a tough situation. I mean, when you're down there and you can't get it in and punching in for a touchdown, you got to have something to lean on to get 3 points out of all the work that you put in offensively to get down the field. From an offensive standpoint in the red zone, I think Connor Riley and just across the board, they just cut down. They've made a few mistakes at Temple when they got down there in the red zone. I think they moved the ball well within the 20s. Just mental stuff. They just got to tighten it up, get more detailed. Maybe a little penalty here cost them, moves them back 5 yards. A sack or a missed assignment. A receiver quarterback miscommunication. So I think really that if they just sharpen it up and really hone in on those details, that they can be successful. I think Connor, for his second start and first, obviously what he did against Notre Dame was very impressive. I mean, he's a very confident quarterback. I think that as he goes on through this season, he'll grow and get better. You kind of see him in the game, and he still kind of makes small mistakes as far as maybe ball security and how he holds that ball. Maybe he's thinking he's still kind of playing baseball when he's holding that football sometimes out there behind him. But I know he's just trying to be aggressive and make plays and try to get out of that, get it out of that scrambling position and get the ball down the field. But he'll learn. I mean, I just think it's a growing experience. I really like that offense that they're in. Really gives them an ability to be versatile, and you do have depth at the running back position. And I think that running game, as you saw last week, continues to grow and gets better, which will open things up in the passing games also.
Moving to the pro ranks, you're a local guy, and Chip Kelly made his head coaching debut last night. Eagles just put on an absolute offensive show. How impressed were you with that offense that the Eagles ran last night? Because it is a little bit of a revolutionary type of offense that Chip Kelly is implementing with Philadelphia.
Well, yeah, it was very dynamic. I thought that it was interesting. I wasn't really sure how it would kind of work in the NFL, but it was exciting to watch. I mean, as a fan and I know the Phillies fans and were definitely, they definitely love that. I mean, to put 33 points up, early in the third quarter, I mean, that, you thought maybe they were going to score 60. But the one thing I do see with that is, and I worry about a little bit, is I worry about the ability to play at that level for 16 games.
Yep.
Have the players be able to play at that type of speed, for ability to do it for a whole year. And you look just in that first game, I mean, to me, I thought they were kind of worn out by the middle of that. After they scored that touchdown beginning of the third, I mean, Vic looked blown. LaShawn McCoy's a type of running back where, he's not just hitting the holes and going. When you start, stop, make cuts and juice, and he does it better than anybody, that builds that lactic acid up in his thighs, man, and that takes almost double out of your system when you're doing that. And you're talking about 2-3 times in a row, breaking 10-yard runs where you're making all those jukes. I mean, he's going to get blown. So they got to have really good depth. And what you might see is a lot of guys that they might sign or bring in or have on waivers or just kind of bring through the system that might not be big-name guys but have played that system to be able to roll them in at points because, it's going to be key, especially when you look at Vic. He looked extremely gassed in the third quarter there moving forward. And you want to make sure you're at your best because, when you're gassed, you can't make plays with your body, but then it starts affecting your mind. And that's where you start getting turnovers and, you start making bad reads. So you worry about that. Not that it's a question now, but that could be something moving forward that might stall the engine a little bit, per se. Just going off that game, it was pretty exciting.
Final one here with Anthony Becht as he joins us on the hotline. Philly's #1 college radio station, WHIP. This is the main event with Zach Gelb and Chase Sr. And I totally agree with you. They looked gassed at the end of the game last night. The Eagles, they looked worn out from the high-tempo offense. And Chip Kelly, he doesn't plan to slow down. As he said, he wants to lead the league in plays per week. Can you maybe see them take a step back in practice this week and have a lower-tempo practice if they're going to want to continue this high-tempo kind of offense during the season?
Well, I think, he'll be smart about it. I mean, it's different in the NFL. I mean, you don't have all the depth and, top high school kids coming in that can compete at the college level. It's not like that in the pros. So, and it goes on the players too. I mean, how they utilize, and, I was on Twitter last night just talking about how they maintain their bodies. I mean, you really got to stay on top of your hydration, IVs, just massage, everything, just to really make sure that you're ready to go for game day. And it's going to be important for all their key players to really stay on top of that because, just to do the basic minimum of drinking waters and fluids, that's not going to be enough because it's going to be a grind. I mean, they're amped up, and I know their practices are high intensity. I know the physicality probably won't be there. So, they're still going to run a plethora of plays in practice, but I think they'll be smart and try to make sure that these guys are prepared. You work heavy early, and then you kind of taper down in the week. So, they'll probably be going fast in smaller chunks, smaller bursts in practices, and, hopefully that, they can continue to, build endurance, and maybe they get better. Maybe they're endurance pros, and maybe it's reverse effect, with these guys. So we'll see what happens, but it is tough, especially when you ask the quarterback to do a lot of running and taking some of them hits. And, Vic did a fantastic job, I thought, managing and running that offense. And, but there are a few times where you're limping around and you felt a big gas to me, and you can kind of see his expression through his mask there, just kind of like, woof, So, but the defenses are just as tired. That's the other thing. So it's, really who's going to falter first? And I think Chip Kelly's trying to build that endurance, and hopefully it's not his guys first.
Well, Anthony, we appreciate it. You were brilliant today. Let's get you on again real soon, and enjoy the games this weekend, and we'll catch up with you real soon, pal.
All right, guys. Good luck this season. Thanks.
Anthony Becht right there on the hotline, Philly's #1 college radio station, WHIP. We'll take a quick break, and on the other side of the break, we will have Chad Dukes who will join us. We'll get the scene out there in Washington, D.C. as the Eagles open up week 1 of the NFL season with a big victory. The Chip Kelly era has begun. Main event, we'll be back right after this.